I'm Rob Shields, and this is Peace Talks, the podcast that covers everything to do with competitive jigsaw puzzling. This is the Peace Talks State of Play Roundtable, where we look back, look forward, and generally look around at the state of competitive jigsaw puzzling at the start of 2026. Gathered with me today is an impressive array of people from across the speed puzzling world. Each person has brought some topics for everyone to weigh in on with their deep thoughts and spicy takes. Going around the table, we have my partner in podcasting and connector of pieces and people, E.B. Caron.
Hi, everyone.
Legendary puzzler of the big screen, past host of the English language live stream at Worlds, current host of the U.S. Nationals live stream, and founding member of the USA Jigsaw Puzzle Association, Valerie Coit.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Rob.
She was a world-class puzzler when she used just one hand and became the 2024 world champion after she added the other one, Kristin Thuv.
Hello, everyone.
Representing the entire Southern Hemisphere, two-time Australian champion, 7th place finisher in the 2024 Worlds, host of the Speed Puzzle Australia online competitions, and member of the Aussie All-Stars, Katrina Coleman.
Hi, Robbie. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
And finally, perhaps the world's foremost expert in silver medals, though she's collected a few golds along the way for comparison purposes. She hosts in-person contests full-time in Minnesota and Wisconsin in the U.S., Sarah Schuler.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, everybody. I'll kick things off with a question that came from Ellen Verhelst, who goes by Lost in Puzzleland in Instagram. Aside from everyone here, who has inspired you in 2025? And I'll go ahead and kick that off and say that for me, if I find somebody inspiring, I get the chance to talk to them, which is great. So everybody who's appeared on the podcast before, including everybody here. But somebody who particularly inspired me this year is Charlie Kendall from the World Jigsaw Puzzle Federation. I think when he was on, he did a good job of humanizing the things going on behind the scenes at Worlds. And you can really see the deep passion for people having a great experience when you talk to him. We'll see if it holds see if he can actually affect any change in 2026. But I did find talking to him very inspiring.
This year, I have been really inspired by Michelle of the Euro Jigsaw Jam. That is just blown up so much to even more than Europe. A lot of Americans have started participating as well. And I just think that the way she's running competitions is really cool. And I'm really excited to see how Euro Jigsaw Jam expands in the future.
Totally agree. It's exploded.
Yeah, my inspiration actually is a little bit different. I'm actually inspired by people like Melissa Newton, who was, I don't know if anybody remembers from the Australians at the World competition, but she was the one that stood there almost crying as she's putting the last 3 or 4 pieces into her puzzle with, like a few minutes to spare before the time ran out. So Melissa started in one of my comps and couldn't complete her puzzle in 3 or 4 hours. So to actually reach her goal of completing the puzzle at Worlds within the time frame allowed, that sort of has really inspired me to do more with getting people up to speed with their puzzling. She'll be surprised to think that she's inspired me, but it's inspired me to keep sharing the love of jigsaw puzzling.
Yeah, I feel like it gets lost from time to time how much just finishing a puzzle in the time can be a major achievement. So I love that people are getting joy out of making that happen.
Yeah, so I was thinking, when I was watching the European Championship this year, when the team of Kathy and Victor and Hannah and Chiara won, and they held up the rainbow flag. I think that was a really inspiring moment, especially in a country that has attacked human rights. And it gives a message that the speed puzzling community and competitions are for everyone. So yeah, what an inspiring moment.
I totally agree. It gave me chills, actually. And given where the political climate is here in the United States, it's good to see people representing elsewhere if we can't do it as well in the United States as we have.
Gosh, I should have an easy answer for this, but all I can think about is my fellow board members, which seems so selfish. But I do want to give them a shout out because I think that as this organization, the USAJP, has grown, it's just become such a giant commitment. And so the fact that, and especially Heather Mueller and Becca Taylor as our newer board members, because I feel like they've just taken on so much and they have just jumped in and they're keeping us really going at this point because, for the three of us, Faith and I and Allie, who've been doing this for a while, I think it's hard to keep up that stamina and that level of enthusiasm. And they've just been such a breath of fresh air and so open and, just wonderful in terms of keeping us on track and just amazing. But I'd also give a shout out to all of those people that have joined the organization that, like Katrina mentioned, that aren't like top, elite speed puzzlers, but that just really enjoy puzzling and like to connect with people. And I'm so pleased that we just keep finding more to add to the speed puzzling community. It's a big answer. It's a lot of people.
I mean, everybody on the USA JPA board inspires me all the time. So I'm 100% behind that.
Thanks.
I'll chime in last. One of my inspirations this year is seeing sisters at the top at Worlds in the top, specifically from the Netherlands. Seeing Ellen and Inga, as well as in their team with Tune and Scene brought another pair of sisters. I have a sister, and so I always just love seeing family teams because it's inspiring.
Katrina, would you do me a favor and kick off the next question?
I would actually like to ask Andrea Peng's question, which is how many puzzles are enough for a good speed puzzle library? It sounds to me very much like Andrea Peng is looking for an excuse to justify a very large collection, perhaps.
I know that she has far too many puzzles and is looking for some guidance, and she thought that guidance would be helpful for other people as well.
This is a question I have also. And I think it depends on what your goals are. So one of my goals has always been to be able to loan out speed puzzles, and exciting news from Connecticut. The University of Hartford now has a jigsaw puzzle club that I'm the faculty advisor for. So I'm hoping to finally get to start loaning out these speed puzzles in my library. So hopefully I'll know better, like what the appropriate number is. But I think it's good to have like some teams puzzles, some pairs puzzles, some solo puzzles. What I have found though, because my speed puzzling goes back to like 2020, is that if you're using old puzzles for comparison time, everyone has gotten so much faster that I think I might have to start getting rid of some of these older puzzles from like 2020 through 2022 because they seem less relevant. Although it could be good to like inflate new speed puzzlers' confidence, maybe. I'm not really sure.
Anybody capable of maintaining a small amount of puzzles in their house?
No, I'm very bad at that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like this question may be targeting exactly the wrong people. We're all very excited to have puzzling in our houses. All right. Well, unfortunately for Andrea, not a lot of good guidance here. We all have that same problem. If you out there in the listening audience have a solution, let us know.
I'll just say I'm a big fan of is it Marie Kondo? Like the idea of, does this puzzle spark joy? And if it does, keep it. And if it doesn't, then get rid of it. That's my way of curating my collection.
And have you found that you've actually successfully been able to use it?
Yeah, I do, because I do a lot of like going to swaps and things like that. And we have like, swap libraries in Duluth. And so, yeah, once in a while, just go through everything and just be like, do I need, am I going to do this again? Is this something? But there are certain ones that I keep just for speed puzzle practice. And like EB said, to use at different events and things like that, where people may want to try speed puzzling. And so it's nice to have some around that, are just good for that kind of thing.
I really admire that, Val. Because what my head says is, but I haven't done it yet. I can't give it away. And then like, I should do it one more time before I give it away.
There's always more puzzles out there. You get rid of some and then they magically appear at the next event that you go to. So
it's so true.
Kristin, are you capable of purging puzzles?
Sometimes, yes. Like, especially like larger ones, 1,000 pieces and up. If they're like difficult and too boring, I give them away. But 500 pieces are a bit more difficult. But luckily, I share a puzzle library with like my family, so it doesn't.
Oh, it's nice to have more people to blame that on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Sarah? Are you able to get rid of puzzles?
Yeah, I get rid of puzzles all the time. I am a one and done kind of person. There's very few that I keep after I finish them. So this year, I've especially been kind of doing the Marie Kondo thing where I look at a puzzle and I go, do I want to do it right now? No. Do I want to do it in the next 6 months? Like maybe it's a Christmas puzzle and it's for that time of year. And if I don't think I want to do it in the next year, get it out of the house. I can always rebuy it again later, probably, maybe.
Ooh, that's a good thing that I can like tell myself. I can always rebuy it later.
Mm-hmm. And likely one of us will have it for you to borrow.
I was going to say you need to give it to somebody so that you can take it back temporarily if you need it. You need to just increase your storage to other people's houses.
Brilliant.
There we go. Problem solved.
Can we ask, like, do you know your numbers? Like, what your puzzle library is? I think it would be fun to go around and say it.
Well, kick us off, Evie.
Well, I counted over the summer and it was like 700 to 750.
Oh, that's a lot.
If you count my work office puzzles, like 50 puzzles at my work office.
I probably have about a fraction of that. I bet at the most I have 150 or so that I'm hanging on to. Rest are fair game. There's maybe like a pile. There's usually a pile that's like, these are for giveaway, swap, whatever. I really only keep ones with sentimental value, like, oh, this was the first contest that I did, or, that kind of thing. But the rest, like Claire said, one and done. Done it. Out it goes.
I've had to greatly reduce my puzzle personal collection because now I have all my competition puzzles that have 30 of the exact same puzzle waiting in my house for the competition to start. So I know I have thousands in my house. I just don't know how many are actually mine. So it's a good workaround there. It's cheating, but that's okay.
All right, Val, why don't you kick us off with the next question?
All right. Well, my next question is what everybody thinks of like the new contest format. So like, for example, puzzle relays or puzzle chess. I'm not familiar with puzzle chicken. I just know it's a thing. And whether you think that those formats could become as competitive or as like almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Like legitimate in terms of a standard, like at a competition, like, are we going to get to a point where at a nationals, where there's the solo individual, there's a solo pairs and teams contest, and then there's a relay contest. Like, are there going to be changes in that? I'm enjoying it as I see these new formats kind of pop up, that there are more and more options for people to seek that out in person. So I guess I'm just wondering what you all think of that. Have you gotten a chance to do them? Would you prefer it if we started or groups started offering more of that? Or do you just want to stick with kind of the standard?
I would love to chime in on that. I have been running some relays in Minnesota and have participated in relays from like speedpuzzling.com. And they are so fun, but the downside is they take a lot of space. So in a team's race or a pair's race, you might switch places with your team members around your table, but you're not actively all at the same time as everyone else in the room switching places like you are in a relay. So if people aren't familiar with a relay, typically it's pairs or teams, and every 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the setup, you switch places and you're working on 2 different puzzles. So everyone in the whole room is switching places. And if you've been to a puzzle contest, it's pretty tight in between the tables. So I think that the only thing really holding us back from putting those into larger competitions is time, because you're going to have to add another section of competitions, and then also space, because you need way more space between the tables to be able to actively have people switching places safely and not hurting each other. But I would love to see a pairs relay, especially. I think that one's really fun for people that a solo puzzle is a little too stressful for them to do, it's nice to be able to switch back and forth with your pairs partner and have someone else to kind of lean on a little bit. And I really have enjoyed doing that format with Laura and my pairs partner. So I would love to see a pairs relay in nationals or worlds or another general championship.
I'm curious if Kristin and Katrina want to weigh in, if you're seeing that kind of offering in, your respective countries. Are there people experimenting with those different types of contests?
Down here, my Aussie All-Stars member, Ree, she's actually started doing some of the puzzle chess competitions locally, and she's finding that they're being very well received. And I've just come back from the China Championships, and they actually had a full-on puzzle chess contest running alongside their national competition. They were using, I think, they might even be 500-piece puzzles. They were big puzzles, 300, I reckon, piece puzzles. And basically people went on to win prizes and win trophies and win awards for that, which was really good. So I do think it adds an extra element to, particularly for people that may feel that they're not up to pace with competing at national level for speed. It does add a different element because not only are you speeding, but you're strategizing as well. So I think there's definitely a place for those competitions. I find them a whole lot of fun, and particularly if you sort of get a little bit stressed or a little bit wound up about, your training and all that sort of stuff for top level competition, to actually go and do some of these different activities. It's a whole lot of fun. And a lot of people even say Worlds is the best part about Worlds is actually competing in a team as opposed to individually. So any time that you can do these sort of team activities or something a little bit different like that, there's definitely a place for that.
Katrina, did you say that there are some places are using 300 and 500 for puzzle chess?
They definitely didn't have like a 100 or 200 piece. It was a big full size. It was a little bit hard to sort of see exactly what they were using, but they would have been at least a 300, if not a 500 piece puzzle that they were competing as a puzzle chess.
Oh man.
500 piece puzzle chess. That's a commitment.
Yeah.
What about you, Kristin? Are you seeing many other formats or ones that you like?
I haven't heard about the one where you swap places before, so that's new to me. And puzzle chess, it's always a fun thing to do, but not like a serious competition, for me at least. But yeah, it could be cool to introduce new formats into competitions, definitely.
Yeah, I do love whatever you think about Worlds, they occasionally inject new concepts into how to go about a competition. And I do love people taking a chance at trying some new things. Here at my house, a couple of weeks ago, we had the first annual Charles Wasaki Festivus, where we had a bunch of people over just to do Charles Wasaki puzzles. And local puzzler and documentarian Maggie Kirkland brought a concept where we had a bunch of 300-piece Wasakis, and everybody started one, and I think it was 3 minutes, we rotated to the next one, and everybody just rotated around the table to the next one. And it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Obviously not competitive, but to the extent that I think Katrina was saying, is if you're not the world's most elite thing, it's still a great way of collaborating on a puzzle. And, even if you're a slow person like me, you end up sort of completing some puzzles along the way. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we actually do that as a family as well. So we can be 5-6 people, and we do one puzzle each, and we start. And yeah, I think we had 3 minutes each. And then we swapped places, and it was really fun. And it's more including for other those that are not as fast.
I think it's a really good option. It kind of reminds me of some of them kind of remind me of a 3-legged race. You don't have 3-legged races at the Olympics, but they're still fun. So, or a potato sack race. And what I would love to see, or maybe plan or help plan, would be puzzle games, where it's a weekend of maybe some more serious team games, races and stuff, but like lots of these fun things where you don't have to have so many of the same puzzles. You can kind of like source from your community rather than like have to buy all these puzzles. Kind of like a puzzle kiosk, or camp sometimes has these like something games where it's like a series of fun competitions. So I think that would be a lot of fun. You could maybe get like neighboring states jigsaw puzzle associations to, you have 2 state teams where they're sending different puzzlers to different races or competitions. So that seems like it could be really fun to me.
It does. I agree. But I also now desperately want to see the U.S. Olympic 3-legged race competition.
Call up ESPN.
In China, speaking of a 3-legged race, they actually had a 3-handed race, 2 people, 3 hands. So the 2 hands were actually strapped together and they had to complete the puzzle. That was another one of the events that they actually had prizes for, like trophies and prizes for. And it was a heats and then it was a final. Amazing.
I don't know why I am not going to China for competitive jigsaw puzzling now. I get the sense that like the Asian countries are not deep into jigsaw puzzling as sort of a culture. And then something like this comes out and I'm like, well, obviously they're doing it right. Let's move on to the next question. Kristin, why don't you tee us off?
Okay, so one of my questions was, how do you hold on to the feeling of joy after having a lot of focus like on competitions and speed puzzling? Because personally, I found that a bit hard.
I find that just changing the style of puzzle that I do once I've finished a competition, I tend to puzzle for relaxation differently to the way that I puzzle for preparation for a competition. So, for me, it's going to the bigger piece counts, sitting down, doing something differently and actually finding the joy through that way. Doing some of the community events and getting back to, puzzle swaps and things like that. It's very difficult in Australia where our national competition is late in the year, so it's November. You work really hard for Worlds and then you come back and you just want to have a break, but you've actually got to keep going because Nationals is just around the corner. So my break happens now, and for me it is, it's just getting back to the landscape style puzzles that I always used to do as opposed to what I might do for speed. So, but keeping the joy is really important, because otherwise it becomes a task, a chore. You're training like an athlete's training sort of thing. Your focus is on results, where the focus should just be on the reason that you started jigsaw puzzling in the first place.
I found that after a few years of competing very regularly that I was not finding joy in doing individual competition. And I have fully cut that out now. I don't do any serious competitions as an individual anymore. And I'm not saying I won't ever come back to doing an individual competition, but it has improved my mental health. And especially since I have made puzzling, which was my passion, a full-time job, that can be also kind of sucking the fun out of doing a puzzle. So I think kind of identifying what exact parts of puzzling or any hobby in general that's not bringing you joy and avoiding those for a while, maybe taking a break on those. And I still have so much fun in pairs and teams and going to competitions, so I won't be stopping that. But taking a break from doing individuals last year and being able to watch the individuals at nationals and commentate on it, it was so much fun and just kind of renewed my joy in that competition in a different way. So kind of looking at what isn't bringing you joy, taking a step back from that, and then maybe kind of figuring out a different way to have that bring you joy.
Yeah, I was just going to interject because something I hadn't really thought of in this conversation is sort of bringing it to me is that in all these times that I've interviewed all these people in the live stream, it's the ones that are really good at the individual puzzling, like yourself, Kristin, and everybody here is really good at individual puzzling, but that's where I feel like the stress really comes into play. It's rare that I'm interviewing a pair or a team that's sitting down and they're like, oh, we were so stressed coming into this. Like that's never a part of that conversation. It really feels like when the stress comes in is when you become a real contender in the solo division. And so I think Sarah just recognizing that and being like, well, then I don't really need that. I'm just going to, leave that behind and maybe come back to it or maybe not. I feel the same way. Like I don't do a lot of individual competitions because I don't find it fun. I find it really stressful and, it creates a lot of anxiety around something that I don't want to be anxious about. So, and I've even stopped. It took me a long time. I've stopped timing myself at home when I do puzzles just on my own. Because I just kind of realized, does it matter? Like, do I need to time it? I guess. But, I've not been at that level that all of you have been at in terms of, or a lot of you have been at in terms of like the individual, like, ability. But yeah, I think it's important to do like Sarah had kind of mentioned, or just if you can recognize that and to just try to take a break from it.
One thing I would add would be being intentional about spending time in person with the puzzle community outside of the high pressure event. So I find like that sometimes the, nationals and world, it's hard to divide your focus between time with friends and time hanging out puzzling and then focusing on preparing for the competition and being at your best. And so I think lower key competitions or even events where like the focus isn't speed puzzling at all, like Puzzle Parley, which Sarah and I go to. It'll be in Minnesota this summer. I think everyone who can come should come because it's a really unique wooden puzzle experience where you just get to spend so much time with other people, appreciating puzzles and enjoying each other's company without having that added stress.
Kristin, you took a break around Worlds as sort of life was intervening. Did you find that extra space allowed some space for the joy of puzzling, or is that something that you're still in search of?
I think I'm a bit like in search for it still, but it has come back to me to a degree. But yeah, I think when I decided that I wouldn't go to World, it really like hit me that, oh no, I'm not enjoying puzzling as much as I used to. And then I was able to take a break and sort of think about, what it should mean to me, or what it should like. It should be some enjoyment, not just like stress and anxiety. So, yeah, I think it's starting to come back.
Did you get any joy out of observing it from the outside, not having to be in the middle of it?
Yeah, I did. It was a huge relief when I saw the finals in individual. It felt like a weight was lifted from me. So it was nice.
I did enjoy that Alejandro talking about how when he didn't continue his streak of winning at Worlds, losing to somebody I forget who, but that in a way it was a relief for him, right? It was like the expectations sort of melted away, and that was sort of a way that he was able to find the joy again as well.
This is something we've been talking a lot about as organizers of nationals, particularly because that does cause people a lot of stress. And we saw that at 2025 with people who just, you looked around the room and it was like a library in there. It was just dead quiet, before the event was going to start, and people are just visibly anxious and nervous and stressed out. And so we've been talking a lot about like, is there something we can do as organizers? Like, is there a way that we can make this maybe more of a party atmosphere? Is there a way that we can try to help alleviate some of that, whether it's having music playing between rounds, just like in the space and encouraging people to like, get up, move around, like talk to each other, just like. So we've been kind of thinking about that, or are we going to do like a fun intro kind of thing, like, and kind of toying with this different ideas of like, how can we make the space maybe a little bit more celebratory and less of like what's going to come out of this bag? And like everybody's so stressed. So if anybody has ideas on that, feel free to share. We'd love to hear them because we're trying to figure that out right now as we plan nationals.
Let's move on to our next question. EB, what you got for us?
I would like to ask your thoughts on age limits in puzzle competitions. This year at Worlds, we had not only like a lower age limit and a junior puzzler award. I'm not sure what the age range is off the top of my head, but we also had some like senior and super senior awards. But the one that I'm most curious about hearing others' thoughts on is the youth age limit, because after our U.S. nationals this past year, we heard from Connor and his mom really arguing for the age limit to be lowered. So I'm just curious to find out other opinions and hear from others on it.
Just to add to that, IcePack, the International Speed Puzzling Advisory Committee, came out with their kind of guidance for puzzles, which I think had correct me if I'm wrong, no lower limit on age as far as their advisory. They're not setting rules, but they're advising as far as their advice is concerned.
The crickets. Nobody wants to take this one. Sarah, you go ahead.
Yeah.
You've been puzzling since you were a kid.
Well,
You wait.
first of all, I want to say I am not a parent and I was not a competitive sports child growing up. So all of my knowledge of competitions and kids comes from seeing things like Dance Moms and Toddlers and Tiaras on cable television. And I think that when you open up, and this obviously is not applicable to a lot of children, especially ones that I know from the puzzle community. But I think when you open up competition to young kids, it can be kind of a parent forcing them to do things they don't want to do. And it can, if they are very good, put a lot of pressure on those children to continue to do those things that they are maybe not enjoying. So I really do appreciate how a lot of competitions have opened up a junior division. I think that gives kids an opportunity to join in a competition, but not have that stress, even if they do want that stress, like Connor might, of competing against adults. I think it just opens up a little bit of a safer space for those kids to be able to explore speed puzzling and still be part of the big competition, but not have to, compete with all of these elite puzzlers and keep up with them. And just give them a little space to grow. So I like a junior competition. But again, I'm loved competing as a kid, and I only did it in teams and pairs because there weren't individual opportunities back then. But I definitely want kids to be in speed puzzling, but I like a little bit of a protection just for them to be able to grow and enjoy speed puzzling still.
What makes this different than something like chess where there is not a minimum age limit and it doesn't seem, and I'm not into the middle of chess, but it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue, or at least hotly contested?
I feel like we just don't see it being an issue. I think it would be similar to speed puzzling. I don't think we would see the issue while we're at the competition, but I am sure that a lot of those kids in high pressure chess environments are breaking under the pressure at home and maybe aren't passionate about chess, and it's parents kind of forcing them to do it. But I don't know. I also don't know a lot about the chess community. I'm pretty stuck on puzzles for hobbies.
You got one lane.
Really good at driving in that lane.
Obviously, I can weigh in a little bit. And I don't want to say that I'm speaking for the whole board because we all have probably opinions on this. But the general consensus that we've shared is that we're going to stick with the 16 and up rule because one, they have the opportunity to compete in the pairs and teams where there is significantly less pressure. And we just talked about that. People who are in pairs and teams don't feel that same level of pressure to perform as you do in a solo round. And not to suggest that we're going to try to parent other people's kids. I mean, that's not what it's about at all. But I have a background in youth development work, a master's in education. I worked in 4-H youth development for years, and I know about ages and stages for kids and what's appropriate in terms of a competitive atmosphere, and how you generally, when kids are like in 4-H, for example, they start out where everybody gets an award, and then you kind of gradually introduce them into more competitive environments. And so I think, and there are different ways, of competing, and it's, there's interviews, and it's not just about performance in that program, for example, versus this, where you're just giving them a puzzle and it's all about their performance and how they do on that particular puzzle. So I think from our perspective, seeing how adults struggle with the pressure and the anxiety that comes, I think we're just trying to maybe, protect kids a little bit from that. Also from the, like what Sarah mentioned with parents, we get lots of parents that contact us and say, my kid is a prodigy. We really want them to be able to compete. Why can't, and then you find out like they're not really even doing other competitions, that this is just something that they think they're really good at from watching them at home or whatever. And so I think we're just a little leery about that too, about a lot of people seeking maybe the prestige of something like participating in a national championship as a child and getting some acclaim for that too. And so I think, there are a multitude of reasons, but and I know, Connor is like he's a prodigy. We've all seen him do extremely well at puzzles, and it's nothing against Connor whatsoever. We'd love to see Connor continue with puzzling, and when he's 16 to jump on in there in that individual competition. And until then, enjoy competing in pairs and teams, and that time will come. So I guess patience is what we would for. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and things might change. I don't want to say that it's going to be that way forever. We would love to have a junior division, but when we've tried that in the past, there's been very few participants, and that doesn't seem terribly meaningful to have prizes when there's 2 competitors and, you award the top 3 or whatever it is. So I think if the sport continues to grow and you get more and more youth involved, then maybe you have to revisit some of this stuff. But for now, I mean, we feel pretty comfortable with just sticking with what we've been doing in the past.
Katrina, are things any different down in Australia in terms of age and inclusion?
Very much the same. I've had one young gentleman join my online competitions. He was 9. He's just turned 10. He did compete in nationals individually. His mother was sort of standing there next to him, so he was right on the sidelines. But again, he's very competitive as well, and certainly be one to look out for. But I also have the thoughts when sort of Val was talking about the educational side. But I don't want other kids to be put off by hearing about these super fast kids and think that they need to be puzzling at Connor's pace at his age, because what we'll end up with if we do that is we'll have kids that actually won't start joining the sport. So give them the opportunity and the time to develop their skills, to develop their love of the puzzling, and again, compete on an even scale with adults when they've also got adult-sized hands and they've got to bend over the table like an adult does and things like that. So there are some advantages, I suppose, that come from having smaller hands, quicker and more nimble compared to adults. So having an individual competition for kids is a great idea. Like you say, focus more on fun. And Dion Healy's actually set up the Interschool Puzzle Club down here in Australia, which has been very good. It's all based on teams and working more on teamwork to do puzzles. And so the kids are getting involved in that fun and joyful way, as we've discussed earlier. You don't want pressure on these kids to sort of, at 10 at 12 to be national champion and things like that. Let them enjoy that fun element, that joyful element of puzzling in a team environment first, and then they can, if they want to progress into, more competitive puzzling as they mature. But yeah, we don't want them to lose the joy of puzzling straight up.
Well, what I'm taking away from this is that we need T-ball style puzzling leagues with age brackets at every 2 years and huge feeder groups, so that by the time we're hitting 16, the junior divisions are robust and well filled out. So everybody listening, go make that happen.
I was going to say, very well said, Katrina. I feel like you said it better than I did, but I thought, yeah, all really great points.
Sarah, why don't you take us to the next question?
So I am not a person that likes to do large piece count puzzles, but if you're doing one of those puzzles with 40,000 pieces in it, do you think it still counts as doing 40,000 pieces if you don't mix all of the bags? For those that don't know, 40,000 piece puzzles and a lot of even things that come in over 3,000 pieces come in separate bags of like 1,000 or 2,000 or 4,000 pieces, and you don't have to mix them together. But does it still count as doing a large puzzle, or are you just doing a bunch of smaller puzzles?
I've done the one on like 40,000 pieces at the Mickey Mouse one. And yeah, they come in bags with 4,000 pieces each. And I didn't mix them up at the time. I just did or it was me and my mom, and we did one at a time. And in the end, it didn't really feel like you've done a large puzzle. It feels like you've done 10 4,000 piece puzzles. And yeah, and I can now, when someone asks, like when people find out that you like puzzles, they always ask, what is the largest one you've ever done? And yeah, it's always like with mixed feelings that I say, it's like 40,000, but yeah, hear me out, it's not. So I feel like you should maybe mix them up, but I guess that would take a lot of time.
I've never done a large format puzzle like that, like a really huge one. I think the biggest one I've ever done is 3,000, but I've seen Dawn Rasmussen's videos online where she's going to do a large format and she mixes all the pieces. And I just think, you're crazy. But I admire it. I greatly admire it. And I think I agree with Kristin that, yeah, no, technically you've just done a bunch of 4,000 piece puzzles. You haven't really done a 40,000.
Yeah, but at the same time, it does take some effort because you have to like preserve the 4,000 piece puzzles and keep them safe until you can assemble them all. And you also need like a large space for doing so.
It would be interesting if we had a shorthand way of talking about, like I did a, 10 by 4,000 as opposed to a 4,000 count where, we know what you mean when you say that. Like everybody's vision is that if you say you did a 40,000 piece puzzle, especially to this not puzzle enthusiast, they're imagining you with a giant box of like all of the pieces in one puzzle as opposed to putting together a bunch of different parts. I mean, this speaks sort of to the world's, was it the 20,000 piece puzzle that they did this last year, where people had like little packets pre-assigned to them and everybody did the little packets. And it was an impressive factory style process of getting pieces and then handing them to other middle management who would then take it to the big puzzle and then put it in the right place in the big puzzle. But is it the same as doing a 20,000 piece puzzle? Maybe not. For those of you who are not watching, which is going to be everybody else, there's a lot of violent head shaking going on here. That is not count as a 20,000 piece puzzle is what I'm seeing.
I really like your way of saying like a 4 by 1,000 or whatever is a way of explaining. So the Mickey Mouse would be like a 10 by 4,000 because you're doing 10 4,000 piece puzzles. I really like that way of looking at it because if people ask me what the largest puzzle I've ever done is, technically I've worked on like 10,000 and 40,000 piece puzzles with other people. But for pieces mixed, 3,000, and I wanted to die. So you will not catch me mixing the 60,000 piece dowdle puzzle together. No, ma'am.
Part of the benefit of saying it that way is that nobody thinks of a relay, like a running relay, as being inferior. And you say like 4 by 100, right? So everybody's still contributing to that. I do have to say, though, that I love that I'm intimidated by a 4,000 piece puzzle, and Kristin's like, well, it's only 10 4,000 piece puzzles. Kristin, you want to give us the next topic?
Can I choose one of anyone?
Anyone you want. It doesn't even have to be on the list.
Okay, I'm just looking at this, like the pairs, 1,000 versus 2 times 500. So I guess for competitions. Yeah, do people have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's come up a lot this year in my talking with other people, is the difference between doing a pairs 1,000 and doing 2 500s instead. I think it would be great, actually. Like I am a fan of having 2 500s because for a number of reasons, I think many of which have been articulated by various guests of Peace Talks before, but it has the benefit of not moving up in complexity I think it was maybe Victor who was talking about having to practice just pairs of thousands, because why would you practice pairs 500s if you know that you're going to have to do thousands? And it's a shift in terms of your sort of mental approach to the puzzle. And so where you have two 500s, you're sort of staying in that same gear. But also, I love the idea of sort of, we saw this play out at nationals in teams, of the opportunity of having two different kinds of puzzles and allowing the opportunity to sort of stretch different muscles so that you're not just seeing who got the best puzzle that matches their capability in that moment on that day.
This is probably getting into too much of a puzzle nerd territory, but that's what this podcast is about.
I was going to say, you're in the right place. There's no better place.
The average person's not going to be listening to this, because like the average human on the street will be like two 500s or 1,000. That's the same deal. It is absolutely, those are two completely different races. 1,000-piece pairs competition, besides just potentially getting an image that is good for you and your pair partner, 1,000-piece takes so much more stamina in a different way than doing two 500 pieces are. When you're doing two 500 pieces back to back, you're getting that super great like boost in the middle where you finish that first puzzle, you're folding it up, you're throwing it off the table, you're getting the next one on. And like that can energize some groups and it can totally crash other groups. So switching it up, I think either way would be really fun. I just know that the elite speed puzzlers, or the people that are really into speed puzzling, will know that those are very different events. I don't know if there's like a pro or a con to using either one. I like both ideas. I'm really interested kind of off that. For nationals this year, we're doing in the teams qualifying, it's a 500 and a 1,000 for the qualifying round, which I'm excited to see. So I think that's also going to be, something that kind of shakes things up a little bit, but
yeah, Val,
very different events.
Val, can you look at the camera while I say the next thing? I heard it was going to be like a large piece, 500 piece Ravensburger. Can you confirm or deny?
No, I can't confirm or deny anything. But probably just because I don't even know the answer to those questions. We compartmentalize a fair amount. So in my brain right now, I'm like, is it? I don't know what it is. But I was gonna respond to the question because I think it is a really fun one to think about, and I think that I totally agree with what Sarah said. Like, it is two different competitions in my mind. But one of the things, and this again, like, don't interpret anything I'm saying as like a hint here, but I want to start to see hard puzzles in these competitions. I think that right now we're all very much in a lot of organizers and just competitions in general. And like, you've got companies now making speed puzzles, like for speed puzzling. And I think we're very much in the zone of comfortability where it's like, we're getting puzzles that are kind of meant to be fast and that are going to improve people's times. And that, sometimes I'm just like, and again, I'm not saying this is happening. Sometimes I just want to see like hand people like, I'm thinking of Worlds 2023 where, give them a Brooklyn Bridge at night and just be like, have fun with that, people. Like,
let's see if anybody finishes it.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I sometimes like, maybe that's just because I'm not competing anymore. So now I'm like thinking of ways to torture speed puzzlers. But I just think like, yeah, we're doing all these easy puzzles. Like, come on, let's throw some humdingers in there once in a while. Like, let's do all rubber ducks or just, some horrible like thing that'll really test people's skill set. I don't know.
Like a bunch of line drawn animals on a black background.
Yeah.
Val, you let me know when you're picking the puzzles for competition so I don't go.
I don't know. I just think, and then because one of the things I think about when you say like the difference between 1,000 and a 500 is I think when you've got pairs that can finish a 500 in under 20 minutes, it's like, then you want to give them 1,000 because at least they're getting a little longer to puzzle. But the reason for that is because we're giving everybody these super easy puzzles. If they were doing like really hard puzzles, it would be taking longer than 20 minutes. So it's sort of a mixed bag.
Kristin, did you have a perspective on this? Having this was a question that spoke to you.
I was also just wondering if what is most fun for spectators to watch? If that's also should be a factor. I think maybe too difficult puzzles when it takes too long, and it doesn't really, you don't see any progress. It's kind of boring to watch. And maybe doing a bit difficult 500-piece puzzles would be more fun to watch and exciting, and it would be more a shift in who's in the lead and stuff.
It is definitely fun to watch the teams where they are cycling through puzzles, right? And seeing teams finish a puzzle and then have that exciting moment of sort of getting everything off stage and then bringing the next thing out. So I think that as a person who's watching, I think you're right. There's a certain amount of excitement that comes with doing a lot of puzzles quickly and then cycling through them.
I think that's a really good point that Kristin makes too. It wouldn't maybe be as fun to watch if it was a really hard puzzle. I do think that as an organizer, a lot of times you're thinking about, you want a lot of teams to finish or a lot of people to finish. You don't want it to be only the top 3 actually finished and everybody else had, half of it done or whatever. So that's what you kind of go into with thinking in terms of puzzle selection. You want everybody to do well or to feel that sense of accomplishment. I think maybe where it could get interesting is if you start to see a return to when you interviewed Andrew Bradburn on Peace Talks, and he talked about the old Hallmark competitions and how only 15 would advance to final. Then you can give them the zebra puzzle because you've got all of your elite people there who are going to finish probably within a decent time frame. And so then I think you could start to see more difficult puzzles coming to the fore. Whereas right now, it's a broader field. We're trying to keep everybody motivated and engaged.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if I were talking to somebody who was picking puzzles for a national competition, say, and I was trying to give them some sort of guidance, I would say, at least not crush us in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Save your really hard puzzles for later on in the round, because I think that some people, I wouldn't know who, might be oh, well, I got here and I'm now it is the most challenging possible scenario. I'm not sure I want to come again, right? This is not necessarily as fun for me to do.
For the first time this year in our nationals, we had 2 times 500-piece puzzles for the pairs. And I felt that it was actually a very good way to go about it because they told us which puzzle we were to do first and which puzzle we were to do second. So everyone was on an even playing field as far as there's always that confusion if people are choosing from which puzzle to do first as to which puzzle they've done first, whether it was quicker than the other. But the good thing about having those 2 500s I found was it also gave those slower pairs, particularly if they chose for us to do the easier, essentially, of the 2 puzzles first, it gave those slower pairs the ability to actually finish that puzzle and have a sense of accomplishment, where the top pairs perhaps have managed to finish both puzzles, but at least they've got a result at the end of the day. They've finished their puzzle. They're going home with a puzzle each at the end of the day as well, which is wonderful. So instead of trying to share, who gets to take home the 1,000-piece after the competition. So that works really well.
All right, next question. This came in from Tobias Premer, TOBIAS_PRIEMER on Instagram. And he asks, are there more ways of making more spectator-friendly setups in competition? And I know that's something that I also struggle with as a primary spectator mode person. I love to go and watch. But for a lot of reasons, the kind of most elite puzzlers are the farthest away from view. Any thoughts on how to make we've already talked a little bit about making it more friendly to watch in terms of puzzle selection and number of puzzles. Any thoughts on how we can make it more spectator accessible in general?
I think it's always going to be about the live stream and the camera work, because even if you can see a top puzzler, it's really hard to see their puzzle. And so being able to compare their progress to someone else nearby and see who's ahead, I think is always going to rely on camera work.
My absolute dream is for GoPro or some similar company to sponsor a competition, and every table has one over it. so that every person that's watching online can kind of choose their own adventure. Like if your grandma is out, watching on the live stream and they want to see their kid who's at, table 104, they're likely not going to be on the live stream very much, but it's super important for that grandma to see their grandkid. And so having a camera at every table would be so cool, where everyone can kind of choose their own people that they want to pin on their screen and watch. Obviously, that's like a way far away type thing. Secondary, I think it would be cool to have like a set of bleachers or something, so that competitors aren't on the same level on the actual ground as the people that are watching. Because it, especially as a 5'2" person, someone that's pretty short, I can't see anything when I'm watching from the sidelines. So it'd be great to see us in like a stadium style. Could be fun.
Andrew Bradburn was talking about the competitions in the 80s as being exactly that. I think it was in a basketball stadium. So they were on the court and they had like bleachers around the sides. That seems like that'd be a lot of fun. Val, I imagine you've had to give this some thought. Do you have a perspective on any of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the camera stuff we talk about all the time. I mean, the live stream just, it gets more expensive every time around because I feel like we keep adding elements and, we need an additional camera person because now we have 100 tables or maybe 2 additional cameras. So yeah, I think we're constantly trying to improve those, what we're able to show and how we go about it. I would love to have the GoPro thing on every table, but then, and we've even talked about that, like mounting cameras on the tables, but then you worry about that interfering. I feel like you'd have to have some kind of grid thing in the ceiling that where it's like all mounted on the ceiling so that you don't have some pole extending up from the table to hold the camera, because then you're interfering with their ability to like puzzle from that spot or, do anything or having to get around this thing. So there's been thought put into that. Like, how can we potentially make that work? So yeah, it's always something we're trying to figure out. I do think that the world's setting up a big screen in the venue with the live stream with no delay has been, that right there. As soon as we saw that, we were like, oh, we're going to do that nationally. That's just the thing we're going to incorporate. So,
you could probably get a Zacho branded table divider with built-in poles on it for mounting things.
We'll get right on that.
That's a cool idea, though. Honestly, like that is a good idea. Have the center divider at least for individual and pairs where you're splitting a table.
Yeah, and it all comes with its own challenges, right? Is that if you've got 100 cameras, suddenly you have maintenance on 100 cameras, battery charging. Some camera's going to break. As Val said, every time you do something, it adds a whole bunch of extra things that you have to add on top of that. What about the idea of just turning the play field around so that the primary people are like the heaviest competitors are actually easily visible by the general public?
I don't think that would necessarily help, because if they're next to, if they're a top competitor, if you've seen it all in the venue, what that looks like, nobody can see their table as a spectator anyway, because there's too many cameras around it. There's usually, still photographers and live stream cameras, and there's people and the judge, there's all these people crowding around their table to record the time, make sure they capture it on film. I don't think it would make a difference. I mean, the primary reason that we put all the top folks kind of near the, front where the organizers are and where the live stream crew is so that we can make sure that there is easy access from the live stream crew point of view, that they're not having to run all the way across the room if their battery runs out and they need to change it quick, or they're having to get direction and their headset's not working or whatever it is. Like, so there are reasons why we kind of set it up that way. If you don't have spectators on that side, you're not having to try to get around them as well or worry about interference in some way. I think that it's a disadvantage probably to the puzzlers who are along the outside and are having to listen to the chatter of spectators and potentially having spectators ask them questions or try to interact with them while they're puzzling. So I think that's another thing we're keeping in mind is that the top competitors who've earned those spots, in the front, that they don't have as many of those other distractions. But yeah, doesn't make it easy for you to watch their strategy as easy as it would be.
I also think the eyeballs or spectators is actually where the growth in speed puzzling comes. So once you start getting eyeballs on the competition, it becomes like any sport. It becomes a little bit more commercialized as well, or the ability to commercialize it. So being a little bit more spectator friendly, I think, is very, very important. Whether that is through the live stream or what, but that's how you take it to the next level. We start getting eyeballs on the sport.
Kristin, as a person who is often in the front, do you have a perspective in terms of being more accessible to the public? Like if we were to turn things around and have the elite folks sort of where the spectators are, what's your perspective on like how that would impact your ability to puzzle?
I mean, I'm in a bubble when I puzzle, so I don't think I would mind having like camera on the table, or it would be okay for me. But I definitely think it would be fun to watch. Was it Sarah that said having the possibility to choose who you want to watch? Because when I follow competitions, like if my sister or my mother is competing, I would like to watch them. So I think that would be a big step.
Yeah, in the live streams comments, everyone that I've been into, there's always the stream of people who are asking you to see somebody. Show us Caron puzzles over and over and over again. There are technologies that do this and they scale to that level, but they come at a cost. And so until we're making tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for the winner in one of these competitions, those will probably not be able to hit those costs. But I'm curious, Val, this year, and I can't remember if you've done it in previous years, there's a spectator badge, like a spectator entry. And so I would be interested to hear how you guys are seeing in terms of the rise, if at all, of the spectator class showing up at events.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I think 2025 was a really hard year to gauge because we were part of AwesomeCon and you had to have a badge to come and spectate. So I don't feel like we had as big a group of spectators maybe for that as we might have in other years. And so, yeah, we offered the spectator button just in anticipation of there are going to be people that have friends and family that just want to stop by and be able to watch and don't want to buy a badge and like attend the whole convention aspect of it. So that was why we added that as an option. It's just $10 for like the whole weekend. Just basically gains them entry to the space so that they can be there and watch if they want. And I would anticipate that that'll help and that we probably will have more spectators than we've ever had at nationals before. But yeah, we're thinking of lots of things of trying to make it more spectator friendly this time around. We have more space than we've ever had too. We've usually been pretty tight in a ballroom where there just wasn't much room for spectators. And this time we're going to have way more space to work with. So we're, working on seating and all of that kind of stuff to just make it a more friendly spectator environment. I think Katrina makes a great point. I mean, that's where a lot of the interest start for people is just learning about it and watching it. And then they're like, oh, maybe I should give this a shot. So I do think it's an important thing to think about.
Well, I've talked to a surprising number of folks who watched a competitive speed puzzle event for the first time and got hooked to buy it. Like folks come at it as like, how exciting can this be to watch? And then they start watching it and they're like, oh my God, this is in fact exciting to watch. So I think, providing more access to spectators absolutely can grow the sport because it's surprisingly addictive. Val, would you mind kicking us off with the next question?
I think I will take on a question that was posed by Linda Maxwell from Cobble Hill and ask people, what do you want manufacturers to know? I'll start with just a brief comment in that, there were a group of people, members of USAJPA this year that came together and presented the question to puzzle manufacturers of, we'd like to see more diversity in terms of the artists that are represented on puzzles. And I thought that was a really thoughtful and accurate assessment that I think that would be really great. I think we are starting to see that a little bit more. And we're starting to see puzzle companies where they kind of specialize in trying to feature art from underrepresented groups. So I think that's amazing. But yeah, what are other people's thoughts of what they'd like to see from different puzzle manufacturers?
Building on what you said, Val, I would add that the diversity of the people on the puzzle is really important to me. Rob mentioned Waisaki earlier, and I get really sick of just seeing white people on American, like Americana puzzles, because it's a whitewashed view of American history. And it's not just Waisaki, it's also current artists for major puzzle manufacturers.
Do you think that's as much a puzzle selection, like an art selection problem, or is that a art availability problem, or both?
I think it's totally an art selection problem. Like, Charles Waisaki likes, all of his art. There isn't any art that doesn't have any person of color in it. But there's tons and tons of artists out there that do that same Americana style artwork and have, people that aren't white in it, which is great, and have different scenes and things like that other artists might not use. So I think there's art out there and people just need to put in a little more work to find it. But there's a lot of really beautiful Americana art out there that isn't totally whitewashed. I think that in addition to diversity in the images, in terms of like having people of color in the images, I think also diversity of image styles in general is a really big issue that I've been seeing over the past few years. A lot of puzzle companies have been popping up with, different images that you wouldn't get with the typical large manufacturers like Ravensburger or Buffalo Games. And I really like to see that. I think that every company has a picture of an Amsterdam canal with a bike. Every company has a picture of a Venice canal with a boat. Everyone has the Stockholm, Amsterdam. I don't remember what that one was from Worlds that I've tried to put out of my mind forever. But I think that there's a lot of similar ideas that have just been slightly tweaked for each puzzle company. And I want some weird new stuff. I want like Garden of Earthly Delights weirdo things coming out of these puzzle companies now that we haven't seen yet. I've seen enough charcuterie boards. I've seen enough, pictures of puppies in a basket on a bike. I want something weird. Give me some weirdo art. That's my request.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, even if, I do feel like a lot of stuff is kind of shifted away from classic art or just art you would see in museums or modern art. You just don't see a lot of that. And I mean, yeah, the possibilities are endless. I love going to modern art museums and just having my mind blown by weird stuff and stuff that just really kind of makes you look at the world differently. And that would be great to see more of that on puzzles. And I do think that there's a sort of mob mentality that starts to happen with all these puzzle companies. They go, oh, collages are big. Let's do all, so then it's all we got is collages, and so I think that's why a lot of puzzle collectors or people that I know that are pretty hardcore puzzlers enjoy getting from all these different companies, because then that gives you that more of that diversity. But it would be great to just see, like you said, give me the weird, give me some stuff that I look at and just go, whoa, that's cool,
Yeah, we need more companies setting new trends.
Yeah, I think when a puzzle brand launches on new collections, they don't need to be all landscapes or all detailed puzzles. They can mix them up a bit because they're so similar very often. So it's if you buy one, you pretty much cover the whole collections, really.
How much of that is driven by what people buy? Because I know that, so obviously Sarah, Val, possibly Kristin would be interested in out of the ordinary style puzzles, but maybe that's not what people are buying art-wise. Maybe people just want more puzzles. I mean, Cobble Hill made their brand around cozy, nostalgia-driven pictures of
barns,
garden landscapes, barns, trucks.
I'm guilty, and when Ravensburger launches some new collections, I just buy them. Even if I don't really like the art, I just buy them.
Is that because you like the brand so much, or because you feel like you need to have them in stock for competition reasons?
I think so.
I was going to go back to Cobble Hill, who you're saying has kind of made their brand on these cozy classic images. But I think Cobble Hill is one of those companies that I frequently talk about changing up puzzle styles. They have, whenever they put out a new collection, you can tell that they are building for two or potentially more than that, but two different markets. There's their tried and true customers that have been with them for years and years that really love those cabins and landscapes and bears on a mountain and puffins on the rocks, which honestly, I love that puzzle too. But then they also are appealing to this kind of new wave of puzzlers that want a more, like my nostalgia is like 90s and 2000s, or like they have one that just came out that's like a doodle dog in a bathtub with a bunch of plants. And I'm like, that's so millennial. Like, it's appealing to a whole new audience. And I think that a lot of puzzle companies are afraid to try something new. So even if they're just trying out one new puzzle idea, one wacky thing for me and Val in their recent collection, I would really love to see more puzzle companies doing that. And also from working with puzzle companies, when I used to work in the industry, more on the like buying from different manufacturers side, I was finding out that a lot of people that work for puzzle companies aren't really big puzzlers. Like, they don't do puzzles as much as the community of people that are purchasing from them. So I would encourage a lot of puzzle companies to ask puzzlers what they want and have them look at images, because a lot of times a beautiful image will come out from a company, but it will be a completely one color blue sky for 30% of the pieces. And it's like, that is awful. And they could fix that with such a small little, detail of like adding an airplane or a butterfly or whatever, that if you weren't a normal puzzler that puzzles a lot, you wouldn't think about that. You'd just be like, oh, fun, blue sky. That's exciting and colorful. So just asking puzzlers to look at images and go, maybe this needs to move here, or add something here because this would be awful to do.
I second that, Rob. I think that's wonderful because, quite often a great photograph, a landscape image is beautiful, beautiful picture, but not a great puzzle.
Building off what Kristin said, or bouncing off what Kristin said, I think what I'm guilty of, like impulse buying, would be the really fast puzzles. So if I see other puzzlers like setting records on a puzzle, I'm like, oh, I need that puzzle. Like the Inside Out 2 puzzle. I haven't gotten it. I really want it.
Yeah, you need to pick up Michelle's new line of puzzles, speaking of world record breaking. Before we hop off this topic, I will lobby for something that isn't art related, but resealable plastic bags would be great. Like, I would love something that I can open, dump, and put the pieces back and reseal.
The thing is, like, a third of the time I rip it before realizing it's resealable.
Exactly.
And then I feel so bad. So maybe like a sticker, resealable bag included.
A resealable bag that just says resealable bag on the outside. Katrina, would you mind kicking us off with
the next question is actually one that's been posed by my Aussie All-Stars teammate in Rihanna Erickson, and she would like to know, do people think that memorizing the cuts of competition puzzles is cheat or feels like cheating?
All right, spicy takes. Anybody want to start off with this?
No.
No, you don't feel, or no, you don't want to start?
Oh, no, I don't think so. It doesn't to me. What about you, Sarah? What do you think? Your face is saying yes, kind of.
No, because I think I'm just jealous that my brain doesn't do that. I could sit and try to memorize pieces for 10 years and there's no way I could ever do it. Or maybe there is, but I'm not going to try. I think I'm just jealous. So I like to think that it's cheating, but I know it's not in my heart.
I'm working on the USA JPA speedrun puzzle, and it is a constant reminder to me of how much stuff just falls right back out of my brain, because I've been looking at this image forever, and I still can't tell you which three pieces go together in certain places of that puzzle. So it's definitely a skill that some people have and other people, as are a lot of the things that make folks on this call elite level puzzlers, is that you have a skill that other people don't have.
Yeah, I don't think it's cheating, but I don't think it's something that I would want to do, because I'm afraid it would like take the soul out of it, out of puzzling. But at the same time, I'm aware that I know some of the pieces in Ravensburger. Like I know the cut just because I've been doing it so many times. And that's also why it's been really important for me to compete with other brands and see like, okay, I'm fast in these as well. And I know like all the people that have said that they are memorizing the piece cut of Ravensburger, they're still fast puzzlers at other brands.
I am firmly in the camp that it is entirely fine, in part because I'm far enough away from having any of the skills that they all seem like magic as far as I'm concerned, right? So if you're able to look at the box and then never look at it again because you've committed it to memory and you know where to put things. Like I remember when I talked to Kristin last year, you said something about, I asked you if like when you move a piece to put it in place, if you rotate it as you go, and you were like, well, yes, obviously. And I was like, well, okay, that's not a skill I have. Just getting the piece over to the place is the hard part. Then, we'll sort of put it in place there. So to me, it's all skills that people have. And I love to see what the maximum performance capability is of people doing a thing. And if people aren't going to change the piece cuts in competition, absolutely, that is an area that you can improve on. I was talking with folks from Cabell Hill the other day, and I trying to lobby them for, I don't think it's going to take, but different piece cuts at competition, because it would be fun to just sort of throw in new things and give everybody a clean slate. Because I think that's what we really want. Like if we had our ideals, we would see a manufacturer people aren't familiar with a cut people don't know, with art nobody has seen, go. Right? That's the thing we would want. But if you're not going to do that, then maximize every opportunity you have 100%.
Just rounding out that, I do think that, like Kristin said, I think it was Kristin, sorry, fast puzzlers are fast puzzlers, irrespective of the brand that they're using, and the EJJ competitions, prove that. So a lot of times it'll be the first time they've seen the cut. Again, if you want to memorize it because that's what they're using in a competition, well, more props to you. Just gives you that advantage. But again, like you say, Rob, it's definitely a skill to be able to try and memorize 500 pieces. I don't know how anyone does that.
Yeah, and it's not clear to me that anybody is spending a lot of time memorizing puzzles. I think some people just are able to get the patterns in their head easier than other people. I think that, sort of like Kristin said, you become familiar with some pieces because you've used those pieces a lot, and you sort of get a sense of where they go. But I've yet to talk to anybody that I remember who's like, yeah, I spent a lot of time memorizing this. Although I did talk to some folks who have said, since I think EBU and I talked to some folks in the kind of World's Wrap, where they were like, well, I hadn't really thought about it before, but it seems like a good thing to be doing now. Like it's maybe something I do for 2026.
I think Kati had talked about like spending time on the train working on it. And I'm not sure what the details were, but I've thought about how you might go about memorizing it. And I think the way would be to like trace a grid and then label the pieces like A1, A2, A3, B, and then like pick them out and quiz yourself.
As long as you're not doing a random cut.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think only people are memorizing Ravensburger cut because, come on, Ravensburger, like decades of the same cut. They're so great in so many ways. But I'm not sure why they're so tied to that particular cut. I think it's time to update it. But yeah, I mean, people memorize the cut of like Cobble Hill because they're speed running, but in that case, it doesn't seem intentional. It seems like kind of like a side effect of speed running a specific puzzle hundreds of times in some cases.
Kristin, do you want to kick off the next question?
So thinking, what puzzle plans do you have that aren't about competitions like this year to come? Like maybe doing a large puzzle or testing new brands or expanding your puzzle collections or whatever?
Reducing my puzzle collection. It's always been a goal for the past 2 years. You know, it's like staying relatively stable is like a almost win on that front, but no, it's always my goal to reduce my puzzle collection, and it hasn't worked out yet.
Kristin, do you ever look to expand your collection? Or are you looking to add new brands or something? Or
Yeah, I'm always expanding.
I'm actually looking to try some different brands. We sort of get stuck in the same brands down here in Australia. So for me, sourcing different brands, particularly for my online competitions that I run, so exposing some people to some different European brands, is that's my focus this year. Just trying some different brands. I've been very Ravensburger focused for quite some time.
My goals are very similar to Val's. And this year I want to continue to work on building the community of puzzlers, especially in Minnesota and Wisconsin, where my business is run. We've been toying with some casual puzzle swap days. And I think doing more of those that are open and free to people, and giving them an opportunity to swap puzzles and get some new ones, doing more of those kind of things and community building rather than, any personal speed goals or anything like that for me.
Kristin, do you have any goals yourself that are not related to competition?
Yeah, I think the same as Katrina, like trying new brands, because over here in Norway, it's very limited which brands you can buy. So it's been mostly like Ravensburger or Clementoni and stuff. So I've been for this Christmas, I wait for different types of brands to just try out. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right, EB, what you got for us?
Since Kristin asked about non-competition plans, I wanted to ask about competition plans, especially since we're seeing a growth of international competitions. And actually, we're recording on January 3rd. I think today was when registration for the Speed Puzzling World Series opened. So anyone want to share their plans?
I haven't actually locked anything away for this year. I have no plans, but I then also tend to be the sort of person that goes, oh, that's on next week, I might go to that. So like I went to the China Championships and I made that booking about 3 weeks out from them. So yeah, but I haven't locked in anything yet. So I need to have a bit of we're trying to organise a family a trip to Japan. So I'm hoping that we can organise that perhaps around the Japan Nationals. I met some of the Japan puzzlers in China. So now I've got some faces to go with names, and we had dinner with them as well, which was lovely. So that might be on my bucket list. But no, I haven't really locked anything away at this stage.
Fair to say that you're going to go to the World Series in so much as that one of your teammates
is putting that on. Melissa Townsend's running that, which is exciting. So she's obviously taken a lot of the feedback that we've sort of chatted about in amongst the the Aussie team and the Aussie All-Stars about things that we would change for Worlds, and suddenly next thing we know, there's this whole new series happening. I'm not 100% committed to that. Not that Melissa probably would like to hear that. It is very expensive to get there. It's about $2,500 Australian dollars, so the best part of $4,500 US dollars to actually get there. So I need to decide whether that's where I go this year or quite where I go.
I feel like a lot of people will be making the decision of the World Series versus Worlds Championship this year. It'll be interesting to see. I was hoping to see what Worlds had, because theoretically their registration should have started yesterday, but last I went to their website, It said, what?
It's February 1st because the day is 1st and the month is 2nd. It says 1/2/26, but that's February 1st.
Europeans.
Everywhere else in the world.
Everywhere else in the world.
Everywhere else in the world.
Yep.
That's right. Not
But
us.
Alfonso hasn't said anything. Like I'm on this like association thread. He just sent the website when he launched the countdown and said registration. So everybody on there was like, what does this mean? Like, is this invite to lead? What is happening? And there's been no confirmation or, sense of what that entails. So I don't know. There's been a few people that have mentioned, well, I think there might have been like a contract obligation that he has to host it in 2026. And and I don't know if like any other country has come forward and said, hey, we would be willing to help with it or whatever. So I don't know. I don't have any more information on that than anybody else does, unfortunately.
I'm curious to spin this slightly differently. If money wasn't an object and time wasn't an object, knowing both of those are big objects, what competition would you love to go to this year?
Australian Nationals, always. That's all I ever want to go to.
I'm envious every time I see anything to do with the Australian Nationals. It always looks like so much fun.
I want to go to the US.
I just had such a blast. We can do a little exchange student moment.
Yeah. I'm the same with Sarah. I would love to go to the Australians just because you guys have had this infrastructure going for a long time, and I'd love to see it in action. Yeah.
I haven't been to Norway yet, though, so maybe visiting Kristin up in Norway would be fun.
Well, and there's a lot of adjacent competitions in the kind of Norway-ish area that make that a little more achievable. Kristin, you've got an embarrassment of riches all of a sudden in terms of competitions that you can go to. Are there particular ones that you're keeping an eye on or are going to go to?
I'm going to nationals here in Norway in April, and I'm also planning to go to the Nordic Championship in Denmark. I think that's in June. But other than that, I'm still thinking which one to choose. I think the World Series, it sounds really fun, the concept. But at the same time, it's just for individuals. There's no pairs or teams.
That is something that I know Melissa is working on because it's the first year. She didn't want to overextend herself and it fall flat. So she wanted to make sure that she got the concept right on that individual basis. But agreed, there have been a few people that have sort of said the fun element of teaming and pairing as opposed to the full-on competitiveness will be missing from that. But I do love the concept and I love the idea of the blind puzzle as well. That's something that they did in China and that was the best. So yeah, creating that different the different elements within the contest, I think she's done well with that.
Give us a quick hit on what a blind puzzle is.
You get the puzzle in a bag. You don't actually get the image on a box. So you just tip the pieces out and you've got to work out for yourself what it is.
I personally would love to go to the Canadian Nationals. That one looks like fun. A lot of great people up there. They've got some beautiful imagery. At least last year they did. So it seems like that could be a lot of fun. And is not so far away, although it's quite a ways away.
Katrina has me wanting to go to China Nationals, but
it was
right.
It was the best. I would talk about that all day. I was very nervous about heading to China. Just not knowing what to expect, and because it's slightly different in that it was actually run by 3DJP, who produced Pin 2 and Peace Relax puzzles. So it was actually a company that was running it, not an association. So they actually had their employees working for them, not volunteers. So it's always going to be at a different level. But it was so much fun. It was just, the plastic puzzles, which was one of the questions I was sort of going to ask a bit later. Is there a place for plastic puzzles in competition? So that took a little bit of getting used to, but it certainly didn't take anything away from the competition. It was very enjoyable and definitely put it on your bucket list.
How many folks were competing
They had
roughly?
3 heats in individuals of about 180 per heat. Yeah, it was.
Okay,
yeah.
That's pretty substantial.
Having not gone to Worlds for the past 2 years, I really don't have FOMO anymore. I have a lot of fun watching from home. But yeah, the FOMO gets easier and easier to deal with, I think, because it's just way too many things happening to keep up with. It's at this point not possible for 99% of puzzlers to get to all of these competitions.
Which is in some ways really great, right? There are so many options now that there weren't last year or the year before. All right, Sarah, why don't you kick us off with the next topic?
This is a topic everyone loves talking about. How do we feel about puzzle companies using AI art? And you can interpret AI art however you would like. Please explain how you're interpreting that before you answer.
Just add again for the listeners along, there were a lot of faces all of a sudden being made, even though not a lot of people who are jumping in. You may want to start off tackling that.
Well, I guess I want to say I'm glad you asked the question, Sarah, because that was something that kind of crossed my mind when we were talking about what do we want puzzle companies to know. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it. And I do think, like, speaking on behalf not just of myself, but of other puzzlers, that this is something that, like, many people in the puzzling community care about because they care about supporting artists.
One of the things that I do enjoy is that when I was talking to Cobble Hill back in June or July on the Portland Jigsaw Masters live stream, we talked about their approach to AI designations and trying to be as transparent as possible. And I recently learned that not only does that mean that they're marking things where they've used AI, but they're also attempting to mark things where the artists that they're commissioning have used AI. So it's not just them building things, but the folks that they're commissioning using AI, and then having a lot of not AI based puzzles as well. And that way folks can make decisions on what it is they want to support. So I think, to me, the idea of being transparent and letting the market decide resonates with how I would love to see this.
Yeah, that's very important. And I also think one of the attractions with the AI puzzles is that they are perfect jigsaw puzzles, in, like we were discussing before, about having puzzle brands not actually being puzzlers. So a lot of the AI generated content has a lot of different textures, a lot of different colors, lots of different things that you can work on. So in that respect, they are very appealing to a lot of puzzlers. So the die-hard puzzlers perhaps are saying, no, let's support the artists, but then I guess the artists need to realize what makes a good jigsaw puzzle and what is an attractive jigsaw puzzle. So plenty of color, plenty of texture, as I've mentioned, and then that will sort of should override potentially the AI input.
Yeah, I was just going to weigh in as well and say, as a person who just knows a lot of artists, and I of course, am kind of anti-AI in that regard, and that I would like to see artists continue to be given that opportunity. But I also just wanted to mention that, like, I think the transparency thing is great that you mentioned, Rob. But what's getting harder and harder, and what I see happening sometimes in the comment section of discussions around this is people sort of equating using certain technology with, like, using AI, because I think there's a lot of artists out there that will use some form of AI, maybe if they're doing digital art. And so it's important to be able to kind of make that distinction, I think, too. And we've had, instances where in competition we've used stock imagery to generate, some custom puzzles through Ravensburger for our contest. And we will go into the stock imagery and we say, no AI generated. We click the little box, the sort filter, to see what images we can kind of be working with. And then we get the puzzle and people do it and they go, oh, this was AI, because they can see, like, oh, this flower pot just, like, melted into the ground or whatever it is. And you're just like, wait a second, like, we literally looked for imagery that said no AI and that it was an artist image or whatever. So I think it's just going to get harder and harder to kind of distinguish on some level these things too. And so the more conversation that we can have around this topic, I think the better. And to have those conversations with the people that we know at different puzzle companies, I think the idea of the transparency, I think, is just so important. And then letting people decide, what they value and what they want to put their money towards. That would be, I think, kind of how I would like to at least see companies approaching it.
I have a lot of very strong personal opinions about AI art. In in puzzle usage, and I've actually quit a full-time job with benefits and everything over a puzzle company using AI art. And I know that AI art, like, I understand it's really expensive to run a puzzle company, and sometimes you need to cut corners, and sometimes that just comes down to you can buy an AI image for $5 and it's thousands of dollars over time to pay an artist. And I understand that. I think where I have a really huge issue, and I have called out puzzle companies for doing this, is when puzzle companies rip an image that is very unique. So we're not talking the average Amsterdam bike canal thing.
Well, I think you make a good point that a lot of people assume it's like the AI is somehow coming up with something, but really it's just scraping the internet for all these things and then just mashing it together a lot of the time. Like it's more a product of what's already out there, and then it's adapting those things. So yeah, there's probably a source image for almost everything that is being kind of created, I think.
Yeah, I think we're in a complicated time where these kinds of discussions are super helpful to sort of wayfind what it is we as a society want to do, because you could easily make the argument that a person making a puzzle is just, or a person making a piece of art is taking a lot of what their experience was and sort of bringing that together into something. I think Val, you said earlier, there a lot of tooling, like I know a lot of Adobe's tooling is AI based. It's not necessarily using a bunch of art on the internet, but it's using actual machine learning. And so the dividing line between what is something that is a legitimate tool that we feel like would be useful versus what is something that is sitting on the backs of a bunch of artists is going to be tricky. And so I love these conversations because I have strong opinions. Sarah has strong opinions. We're sort of on the opposite side of those, but that's how we find out, right? These kinds of discussions are how we get the good things out, the good points out, and determine, which ones resonate with us and which ones are things that we're like, yeah, that's a thing we're willing to give. Because if you take AI out of the picture, it's not like people aren't duplicating other people's art. It's not like we're not seeing puzzle companies taking other puzzle companies' art without the benefit of AI. Like, these things happen. AI, in a lot of ways, just makes it easier, but it's a continuation of, in a lot of ways, problems we've already had. So I love that these kinds of conversations are ongoing. And again, I circle back to, as long as we can be as transparent as possible, then the market can help make that decision. If puzzlers don't ever buy something that's marked as AI, then now we know. All right. I will lead us off to the next topic. What predictions do you have for 2026? So what kinds of things do you think might emerge in 2026 that aren't just already on a schedule? I will start by saying that, I am on record as saying that we will see a sub 2,500 in competition individuals. I don't think this is that year. I think that it'll be probably another year or two. So my prediction is that we will probably see, because as we've talked about, people are making speed puzzling puzzles. We will see new 500 world records, first time 500s, but I don't think we get under 20 minutes this year, but I do think it's coming.
Thinking about the World Championship last year, we didn't have really big surprises. And also, I would say for the most part, same at US Nationals last year. The top 10 were like, for the, I think, like complete part known competitors. There weren't people, making their debut, because I think the community has grown, and there are so many places to compete, both online and growing in person internationally now. Maybe 2026 will be a year for comebacks, Kristin. If we're not seeing like anyone new, maybe it'll be a comeback year. Sarah?
Yeah, I would love to see Sarah come back. Although I do get the irony of trying to pressure the people who are trying to distance themselves from the stress of competitions.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, geez, lay off.
Yeah, maybe it's your year for a comeback.
There we go.
Yeah, that would be a big surprise. That would be like, I think everybody would have to drop out in the top 150 or so for that to happen. I don't know. I think it's just going to continue to grow, which isn't like a terribly, crazy out there prediction. But
Well, let's take a quick side trip there. So for
Mhm.
Worlds, we saw a decrease in the number of registrants who showed up last year, but it looks like the U.S. Nationals sold out pretty immediately. So
yeah,
it feels like it was sort of a question as to whether the number of speed puzzlers had sort of peaked for Worlds. I would say not really a question, but sort of a question. I feel like the U.S. Nationals is sort of bearing out the idea that we haven't hit peak yet. Val, does that seem right to you?
yeah. No, I think we could continue to grow. I think the thing that we're bumping up against is we just have no desire to start to host a 4, 5, 6 day event, and we basically run out of hours of the day. We aren't going to have puzzlers puzzling at midnight or anything like that. So we just have to cap it at what we can fit in reasonably in a day. And I mean, obviously, sure, you could go to 200 tables instead of 100. But that gets pretty unwieldy in terms of judges and all of that as well. And then, wanting to keep it, I don't know. I mean, we've talked a lot about that. Like, what can we do? What can we do in a reasonably good way that's going to make this experience still feel like a tightly knit community, and just like have all of the kind of the lovely benefits of it without it feeling like we're on a factory floor with just hundreds and hundreds of people that doesn't really, I don't know, lead to a great atmosphere. I mean, I will say, Winter Carnival, which is coming up, and I think, EB and Rob, you've both been a part of that. They have more than 100 tables, I think, at that event. So I guess it's possible that you can do, bigger spaces with more and more tables. But yeah, we're just not interested in being like Worlds and having it be this like 5, 6, 7 day commitment. I will say I'm curious if Worlds will have even fewer participants based on how things went in 2025 with the heat and just that. I mean, I know I'm not going back after seeing that, because I was so glad that I didn't do the live stream, and I would have lasted like 10 minutes with that heat. So I'm a northern Minnesotan girl. I can't handle 90, 100-degree temperatures. So I'm not going to be signing up for that in 2026. I'll be curious if other people are turned off by that, or if it affects registration, if it's going to be a Valladolid again and kind of under the same setting. So
Val, I'll ask you, this is sort of a proxy for Worlds as well, but what about qualifications into Nationals?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't gone there yet, but I think, right now, in terms of state associations, we have quite a few that are official now, and we've had interest from, I think, 40 of the 50 states in the U.S. and starting in an affiliate group or having some kind of state association. I think that's a ways down the road yet, but 10, 12 years from now or more, there could be a time when every state is having a championship, and that helps to determine who goes on the nationals. We're not there yet, but I think unless you want to start to really expand the size of what's being offered, or the number of days that people are committing to, that'll have to be something to be brought into consideration.
That's exactly where I was sort of going ahead. I'm finding, and it's coming back to my personal preference for wanting to get to more competitions, just more small, maybe not even have to be smaller, but more competitions that are a lead into nationals perhaps is a great idea, because then people can feel that they're still part of the community. They're getting the opportunity to race, in their own hometown, their home state, whatever it might be. So I guess my prediction is there's going to be, and we've certainly noticed it even in the lead up to this year here in Australia, there are going to be more localized competitions where those more relaxed environments and more community-minded environments actually provide the opportunity for those people to enjoy their puzzling, and then it not so much takes them away from nationals, but the nationals then become the elite level of speed puzzling. And if you're not an elite puzzler, then you appreciate that you've had plenty of opportunities to enjoy the community for what it is, and then you can potentially go along and spectate the elite and be quite happy just spectating the elite. If there are other activities around that competition. So, for example, we had like a breakout room where you can have different activities going on. Again, I come back to China. They had like a passport thing that you could get stamped. You go to all these different activities and do different things like a blindfold puzzle and have your pairs partner talk you through completing the puzzle. You get your stamp. So there is other activities that don't involve competition, but the competition goes on with those puzzlers that have qualified. But you don't necessarily have to, the community-based puzzler can still feel a part of that environment, but not necessarily, not taking space on the floor. But you know what I mean? When space is at a premium, you've got the faster puzzlers competing.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the U.S. Nationals for that same reason. It seems like the value you guys are intentionally doing an every other year convention attachment to the thing, and this year it feels like there are a lot of components that will make it so that if you make the trip out there and you're eliminated in the first round, there's still a lot of value to be had there, right? There's still a lot of puzzle related activities you can do. There's still a lot of community to be involved in there. So I love the idea of Katrina, I think you said it perfectly well. I think it sets the stage for here's where the elite folks are, and you can go and watch them and you can try and become one of those and participate. But if not, there's all of this other great stuff that you can do along the way.
Yeah.
And the cost entry for those people that aren't competing is like minimal, or anything, could be nothing. But like we've said before, it's about getting eyeballs on the competition. That's where the growth in a commercial sense comes from the sport. So allowing people to come. There are other activities that they can be involved in. They don't have to be a speed puzzler, but come along and enjoy the community element of it.
Katrina, do you want to bring your last question?
Sure. One of the questions I had comes back to speed puzzling more so than the puzzling in general. And what has made the biggest improvement to your puzzling times if you're still timing? So there's a few people I know that aren't probably doing the competitive puzzling as much anymore. So it may not be quite the right question for this group. But yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
I think the biggest improvement was when I went from using one hand and sitting to standing and using both my hands. That was definitely a revolution for my times. But also, maybe, as I mentioned earlier, like doing more different types of brands. That has also improved my times. Because then you have to, at some puzzles, you can't use the piece cut as much. So then you have to be more aware of the image. And then you can use that in other puzzles. And also the other way around, that the image is really difficult, so you have to depend more on the piece cut. So yeah, I think that also helps my time.
Katrina, what about you? What has helped your time this year?
My times remain relatively stable, so that's why I'm asking. Having some inside information.
One thing I've been trying, and I don't know, I don't think I can claim that it's leading to a big improvement yet. Or I haven't been super invested in measuring whether it's leading to improvement either. But I've been trying to journal about my puzzling and what went well and what I could have improved on. And that's something that I remember from Kristin's interview from Rob, is saying that, you have to put your brain in it. You can't just go and do it. And I think it forces me to reflect on it, the whole puzzle and how it went. It's a way of forcing myself to actually think about it. And then also, when I've also been trying to go back and read what I've written so that I can remind myself because like you, Rob, the thing is just like leave my brain.
I just want to add, like, leading up to the World Championship 2024, I think maybe I mentioned that in my podcast with you, that I spent a lot of time just before I did a puzzle. I thought about, like, what's the best strategy here? And you can't use that in a competition, but it does make you more, my English is so bad.
Yeah, well, I remember us talking about that, and it had an epiphany for me, is that if you practice strategizing, then strategy becomes something you can execute on quickly, right? So it's like with anything else. If you develop those parts of your brain, then your brain can do that thing much better. And so you're not surprised in the middle of a competition. Like, it's a skill now you have.
Yeah, exactly. Because I used to think that in a competition, you don't know what puzzle you're going to get. So I should do that at home as well. Just like pick up a puzzle and do it without looking at it. But I think that was the wrong strategy.
So intentionally, the reverse of that being, as you said, to sort of like intentionally think through what the right approach would be to that puzzle rather than just doing it blindly.
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of getting started.
Yeah, exactly.
As a representative for the slow puzzlers, and I occasionally get messages from folks saying, oh, thank goodness somebody is out there as it's not extremely fast. So I'm here for you people. I'm going to say the thing that's going to sound ridiculous on the face of it, which is practice. Like actually practicing things rather than just doing puzzles, like intentional practice. Like I'm doing things in order to go fast. Like it leads to all the things you guys have already been talking about, right? It leads to intentionality. It leads to rewiring certain parts of your brain. But it is amazing how much thoughtful practice, just engaging with that at all, can impact how you do.
I remember I would also like choose some puzzles and put them aside for days when I was feeling at my best, because that's very energizing, doing a puzzle and doing it fast. So if on the days I was feeling a bit like sluggish, I wouldn't do them. I think that, yeah, that was also a part of it.
What kinds of puzzles do you set aside? Like, do you set aside specifically more challenging things or things that you think you could go really fast with? Like, what qualifies as a set aside?
Yeah, not really challenging ones. I think puzzles that I feel I have a good shot at, and just new ones.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's more it's more the mental side of it too is quite important. It's more important than we realise, I think. And even in the lead up to Worlds, not this year, but the year before, I was right off my speed puzzling. Don't look at what anybody else is doing for times because, was it really their first time or have they done it once? Or was that really accurate, And it all starts playing in your mind. So to actually switch off and just do you, I think is pretty important. Otherwise, like you say, like we talked earlier about how do you find the joy in puzzling? It all just becomes a chore. Otherwise, you're just constantly trying to better your time. It's not always about that. So keeping that mental health, peace of mind, top of mind, sorry.
I know I've talked about this on the live stream too, but it just always, whenever I think of this, is back when I was more competitive and I was with the team that was doing really well every year at Winter Carnival, we were consistently every year we were coming in second, and it was so annoying. And then one year we just were like, okay, what is going on here? Like, why, because we would time ourselves like on puzzles that the other group had done and we'd do it faster. We were like, why do we get to the thing? And then we always come in second. And we were spending like 12 hours the day before puzzling. Like we were just, we would get together like, 1 PM and we would puzzle all day. It was like, because we all lived in different places and we didn't puzzle a lot together. So then we'd come together to practice. And we basically would wear ourselves out the day before the big event with puzzling. And then when we quit doing that, like one year we were like, you know what? Let's just show up cold and just see how it goes. And we won. Like that was like the first time. And we were like, yeah, maybe we probably shouldn't have puzzled for like, so many hours yesterday and then came into this just completely, exhausted. So for us, that was like a major turning point of just realizing that you can't be slogging through the days leading up to a competition, it kind of helps to have a kind of fresh eye, or just be, I don't know. We all felt more energized. I know for sure at the morning of the competition when we hadn't puzzled at all the day before. There were no warm-ups, nothing. It was just, we went in cold and it was great.
And if it's anything like us with the Aussie All-Stars, we're the same. We're all over Australia. But as soon as we get together, you're so energized. Like you say, it's just like all the things that you've practiced in the past, they're all still there. And it all comes out once the timer goes. But yeah, utilizing that energy is, that's pretty important. I like that.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Like if you were a world-class sprinter, you wouldn't do a marathon the day prior, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, you want that reserves. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. We were just like, what have we been doing this whole time? Yeah, it was quite the epiphany. And I don't even know if it was really like, I think we basically were like, well, we could get together the day before, but I think for whatever reason, it wasn't going to be super convenient. So we were like, what if we went in cold? What if we just like didn't practice? And then that year won, and we were like, oh, geez. So we learned a very important lesson, and we quit practicing the day before. We would practice previous to that, but just not right before. I think when you interviewed Victor, he talked a little bit about taking a brief respite from puzzling, like before getting into his individual qualifier.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said for being fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Valerie, why don't you give us the next question?
Are there things that people enjoy when they're watching live streams? I think everybody here is somebody who is watching live streams of puzzling and seeing puzzle content. So maybe not restricting it to live streams, but just puzzle content in general. There's so much now on Instagram and YouTube and things out there. What are people enjoying? Do you have any pointers for me? What do you like that you've seen in different live streams, or what are things that, you would be excited to see going forward?
I also have the same question, so I want to know the answer.
Okay, well, I'll kick off. Jason, who runs a lot of the all the audio visual stuff through the Australian Jigsaw Puzzle Association, he's now set up a 3-person screen when on the live stream, which I'm finding really good, because you can get a nice narrow look at their puzzle, what they're doing. But also what I love about what he's doing is he's actually putting up in the top corner the person's name and adding in some of their experience. So yes, these are the 2022 national champion, or this is the 2024 Victorian state champion, or whatever, 27th in the world, whatever the case might be. And I'm really enjoying that because it's personalizing those people a little bit more, other than just a set of hands in a puzzle. So that's something that I've really enjoyed seeing on the live streams.
Yeah, I love that. I do think that's great. We've been trying to figure out the best way to do that with 200 competitors in there. So I actually should talk to Jason and be like, how are you? Because he's so immersed in the world. I feel like he probably knows a lot of those people. So it's not as hard for him maybe to be putting all of that in there. But that is something we're definitely looking at trying to replicate, because that is really nice. Yeah. You guys are doing an awesome job.
I think everyone knows that I also love the finding out more about puzzlers as people, and learning about them. And I think one way of doing that is the shout outs to family and friends who are watching. I love that part when it happens. I just, it gets really sweet.
I really love when they interview artists and hearing how they created that image specifically for that puzzle. I think that's a really cool part.
I think you interviewed Nate, right?
Yeah.
Mortensen?
Yeah. Nathaniel Mortensen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nathaniel. Yeah.
It was great because he gave me a lot of sort of epiphanies into how, exactly as Sarah's saying, how artists think about it, puzzles, and also what the specialization is in terms of doing puzzles, doing art for puzzles, because it's not just taking any old piece of art. Like we were talking about before, I think Sarah mentioned this, there's plenty of things involved in making a puzzle fun to do that don't include large swaths of blue sky. Some people are going to love that, but it takes real concerted effort to make that happen.
Everyone should go listen to the Nathaniel podcast. I got an in-person Nathaniel podcast essentially after the last nationals in San Diego, where we did the puzzle the day after all the competitions were done together. I just casually did his hot air balloon puzzle, and he told me all of the stories about every single little tiny detail. And I look back on that as one of my favorite puzzle memories of all time, because it was just awe-inspiring to see how much he cares about putting in details to puzzles. So I really love to hear when other artists talk about like, oh yeah, and then I put my dog into this part because, why not? And I just love little, kind of like Evie with her shout outs. Like, I love the little personal touches people have on their puzzles. So
yeah, I think of that as the Mortonverse, where like every puzzle that Nathaniel Mortensen has is related to almost every other puzzle that he's done in some way. A particular small detail is often an echo of something large in a different puzzle.
I was going to say the same as Sarah, that I like when they interview the artists behind the puzzles. I think this year I also noticed that there was like new expressions or phrases used to explain different things. I think like theme, is that what it's called? That was commenting. Yeah, he was really good at that, and I think that's really cool. That it's such a new sport, or what do you call it? There's like an opportunity to create new terms or expressions. And I really like that.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Jim and Mari do a puzzle terminology Instagram series, which is both delightful and informative, I think they took away sort of the things that were going on in Worlds and decided to condense it down into little snippets, which I think are a lot of fun. And they go in depth in sort of explaining what those things are. And Mari will give an example using puzzles of how those things work. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I really like it. And I think the puzzle world needs it to explain different things.
All right, Sarah, what you got for us?
Okay. So everyone, I want to know what your favorite piece count to puzzle is. Maybe your favorite piece count to puzzle for fun and your favorite piece count to puzzle for a competition.
My favorite piece count for fun and relaxation is 1,500. And my favorite puzzle to puzzle of all times is actually 500. So I'm really loving 500. Always a 1,000-piece landscape girl until I found the world of speed puzzling. And now I can't pass up a 500-piece. Even the daggiest old 1970s $1 from the op shop. Yep, I'm buying it and I'm taking it home and seeing how long it takes me.
Valerie, what about you?
Yeah, I would say 500s all the way. Like, I just love that you can just sit down in one sitting and just like have a coffee and like do a puzzle. Like, if it's just, a nice breezy 500. I end up doing a lot of thousands when I'm doing casual, just because if I'm going to spend money, I'd rather have it take a little longer. So I'll do 1,000 then. And so I own a lot of thousands. I would say a lot of my collection is 1,000 pieces, but yeah, I love a good 500.
I'm a fan of 100-piece puzzles lately. Like, I use them a lot in my class when I teach because everyone can do them in under half an hour, at least like after the first month of class. So I've gotten like quite a collection, and they're just so, for both, honestly, both like relaxation and speed puzzling. It's just fun to zip through mini puzzles. I also bring like a lot of mini puzzles to work meetings. And I'm like doing them on sometimes like, a small like lap desk that's in like a desk on top, like, a folding like little table that goes over the desk. And yeah, I love mini puzzles for both, but also like 500s of. But I also like warming up. I like you could do like a left-handed warm up before your 500. I just love the 100-piece. Yeah, I'm loving 100-piece puzzles lately.
Kristin, what about you?
Yeah, I would also say 500s. But I agree that the small like mini puzzles are really fun. And you can like bring them with you and you have warm-ups, and you can do like them blindfolded, or it's so they're fun also.
Sarah, did you say what your favorite is?
I didn't. I like doing 500s for speed if I'm going by myself. And then I like to do usually like 1,000 piece if I'm casual, but I won't say no to any puzzle. Well, unless it's over 1,000 pieces, then I'll probably say no.
So you're not into Katrina's 1,500 as one of her sweet spots?
They're just so big. They take up so much space compared to the 1,000 piece. And lately I've been puzzling on my couch with a puzzle board. Shout out Zacho for my beautiful puzzle board. But yeah, 1,000's just nice. I do them in a night usually if I'm like watching TV with my dogs.
I have to say, as a non-elite puzzler, 300 is sort of where my sweet spot is, but I've been weaning myself off of those up to the 500s as I make incremental gains. But I think to something that I've heard several people say, it's nice to be able to sort of just get something and sort of breeze through it. And as a slower puzzler, I don't breeze through a 500 quite yet. So I'm picking the level that I can still breeze through and knock out. So those are a lot of fun, and there so many of them. They're everywhere, and they're easy to find. So that's nice. All right, EB, take us out.
All right. So I get to host my first speed round. So first question, one word answer. Do you agree or disagree with Rob's take that we'll see a sub 20 time on a competition, like first attempt puzzle in the next 5 years? Katrina.
Yes.
Val.
Yes. I don't know. That just seems crazy, but it seems crazy to be under 25. So, and that's where we are. So, sure, under 20. Sure, yeah.
Kristin.
I'm going to go with no on this one.
Sarah.
Yes, asterisk. Because I can only give one answer.
Okay, next question. Hard to move on.
All right, tell us what the asterisk is.
Yeah, tell us.
If it's a Ravensburger traditionally cut and the person has memorized the cut.
Yeah, so obviously yes, absolutely. But it's interesting that since there are a number of puzzle brands trying to make things for speed puzzlers to go fast, it will be interesting to see if it is not a Ravensburger traditional cut, but some other company who's built the puzzle intentionally to go fast.
Next question. You have 2 sentences for this one. Your suggestion of a future Peace Talks guest and one question that you would want Rob to ask them. We'll start with Sarah this time.
I think it would be fun to have maybe Kate from Puzzledly. Puzzledly is a company that sells puzzles. They do have their own brand, but they mostly are a marketplace for unique and hard to get puzzles in the US. And I just think it would be really cool to talk about how they find their brands and what it's like to run a full-time puzzle business. You better be writing these down, Rob.
I don't have to. They're recorded.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we're on a podcast.
Next up, Kristin.
I'm not sure I can answer this. I don't know of many people, and many of them have been on the podcast earlier. So I'm not.
Good job, Rob.
Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Val.
I would say, I think, something I thought of earlier when we were talking about manufacturer stuff is having somebody from Ravensburger on, like Nate or Rachel Kintley, who does work with the artist and can just talk all day about what makes a good puzzle. I find conversations with her just fascinating. I think Nate can be really interesting because he can talk a lot about the licensing side of things and just the kind of intricacies of the, working with puzzle art and market trends and that kind of thing.
Katrina, was this I don't want to answer it?
I'm a bit like Kristin. All the people that I've sort of want to hear from, I've heard from already. So I do like the idea of having someone from Ravensburger on, and I've been fortunate enough to be through the factory at Ravensburger, and it was very enlightening. So there's a lot of stuff that I probably already know about Ravensburger that a lot of people don't, that would be very interested in learning. So I'll double tick the Valerie's Ravensburger one.
Going off that, I think it would be really cool to have Lisa Fireman join because she is like the Ravensburger expert.
Yeah.
The American, like non-associated with the company Ravensburger expert. I think she would be really interesting to get like multiple perspectives on Ravensburger. My suggestions are the Czech puzzle queens. And then also I would want to see like I want to hear a Dutch puzzler episode soon.
It's a good thing that I'm the fanboy here because like I have a list that is so long that it would take me a couple of years to get through. Once we get past US nationals, absolutely the Dutch, the Czech, any number of other folks are on my radar. So hoping to continue to have great conversations with lots of fun and interesting people. Thanks for asking the question, Evie.
Yeah, okay. This was not the speediest speed round. So let's go back to one word questions. One word for your hopes or vision for puzzling in 2026. We'll start with Val. Sorry.
I was like, oh, don't call on me. 'Cause I was like, I don't know what it's gonna be. I'll just say kindness.
I like that.
I love how our community is so kind and so welcoming, and I really hope we can continue to maintain that type of atmosphere as it gets bigger and more competitive, like every year with new events and new folks. And yeah,
Kristin,
Maybe back to the roots.
love that. Katrina,
Expanding.
Rob, I'll let you go next this time.
Building on that more.
Yes. And Sarah,
Community.
I'll just add fun. Last question. Your favorite item of puzzle clothing or another puzzle accessory? Rob,
Well, I mean, it would have to be Peace Talks branded merch, right?
right?
As Evie is demonstrating and nobody can see.
Sarah,
I like my puzzle earrings that I have. I have a set of studs that I wear literally every single day, even when I'm not doing puzzle stuff. And they're probably my favorite piece of puzzle related merch.
Kristin,
Maybe some of my t-shirts used in competitions, like themes t-shirts, especially the one that my boyfriend designed. I really love that.
Val,
I'm going to say the Australian JPA shirt that Diarm gifted to me because I still remember the first time I saw all of the Australians arrive at Worlds in 2022 in their awesome uniforms. Like, you guys just have like the best uniforms. And I was just like, oh man, like those are so cool. Like the rest of us were in t-shirts and you guys were like full on like tracksuits. It was like amazing. And so, yeah, I cherished that shirt.
and Katrina.
Yes, if you're going all that way, you got to go all out. My favorite accessory is the shoes that the Aussie All-Stars wear. So the shoes are actually just a set of white volley style shoes that Rihanna had actually painted in gold and green with stars and jigsaw piece puzzle. So they are my take to every competition. Love them.
Thanks, Evie, for the speed round. And that takes us to the end of this roundtable. It has been deeply my honor that you were all willing to join me today. Thank you so much. Let's go around the table and let people know where they can find you. Katrina, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm on both Instagram and Facebook just under Katrina Coleman and also under Speed Puzzles Oz on Instagram for the speed puzzling competitions.
Val?
Yeah, I'm just Val Coit on Instagram, and I think somewhat close to that Valerie Coit or Val Coit on Facebook, but I'm not a big puzzle content creator outside of live streams, unfortunately. So if you're looking for puzzle content, you're best off just going to the USA Jigsaw YouTube channel or, and looking there for me.
I like that Val does her content all at once for the entire year.
Yes. Yeah. And then I'm done. And then I'm like, I don't, but that's just, I'm not competing and I'm not practicing. So I'm not out here creating a bunch of, engaging lead up content. I wish I had more time. If I wasn't organizing, I'd love to do something like what you're doing, Rob, like interviewing people and just shedding more light on people's experiences and stuff. So I greatly value this podcast as a means of learning about people and their experiences.
Aw. Kristin.
So you can find me at Instagram under Kristin_puzzles, but there's not really that much happening there at the moment. So,
Sarah?
Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram as Sarah Does Puzzles, Sarah with H on the end. I also have a website. If you're in Minnesota or Wisconsin, check it out.
And Evie.
At Puzzle Free or Die, and occasionally at Kati.puzzles.1st.puzzlefriends.
And if you want to know what that's all about, you need to go back to listen to the first Kati episode that we did back last year. So a deep cut. Thanks, Evie. And with that, thank you everyone once again for joining me. And I look forward to all that's going to happen in 2026. Thanks for listening to Peace Talks. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at peace_talks. And you can send email to peacetalkscast@gmail.com.